how much would I like to win? I don't know, I mean, $1 million would be nice, but I mean, if you won something like a mad rollover, you know what I mean, 20 million, you'd be happy. I'd be happy, I'd be happy winning a tenner.
Give up work, live a life of luxury, go shopping.
So you can have holidays, or you can have your own house, cars, nice luxuries.
You'd have one hell of a party, I mean, top party, you know what I mean? Get a boat or something, loads of prostitutes, all your mates, and just go mental, you know what I mean?
Do we as a nation believe that if we are richer, if we're prettier, if we buy this car or that video, if we could be someone else, that we'd be happier and more fulfilled? Watching those ads takes me back to when I was a child, and I think it was probably when I was around about 10, towards the end of the 1950s, when we first got a television, and I saw my first television advertisement, which is incredible because the average 10-year-old today has seen about 80,000 advertisements by age 10. And who'd have thought in kind of 1950 or something that the average adult would spend 20 hours a week watching television? New Labour's attitude to the mass media doesn't appear to be any different from past governments. I mean, we've just had the introduction of digital, 200 channels more of what? I don't know, more influence, certainly. And obviously it's broader than that. The saturation of mass media in our society is just a completely new phenomenon.
So what are you hoping to discover?
Well, I'd like to know what the impact of the mass media, not just television, but the mass media has been on our inner lives. And I suppose that's the thing that intrigues me. How has it got inside our heads? What's it doing to our psychology? And I thought I'd begin that journey by going to meet a young woman who, like so many young women, is very preoccupied with the way she looks.
Surely that the media tells you how you look.
Yeah.
Obviously that's something that I have thought about.
Claudia Schiffer.
Oh yeah.
Doing her striptease. I mean, there's just there's absolutely no excuse for trying to create a connection in your mind between her in that unclad state and the car.
I'm 26 and I have a day job for a theatre and education company, and I'm also in a band, and that's really what I would like my future career to be in, to be a singer. I have a partner called Neil, and I've got a great family who I love very much. I don't know if there'll ever be a time where I can look in the mirror and say, that's it, that's what I wanted.
What do you think would make you happy?
I would rid my body of all excess fat. I would have a more dynamic hair colour. I would tan more easily. I'd grow my fingernails more successfully as I keep chewing them off. I'd give myself thicker eyelashes.
How would you say your general state of mind is?
Well, just the feeling that you don't come up to scratch, really, and that everyone else around you does, and that you're powerless to be happy, really. And when you get down about it, it is literally like just this massive thing. It's like all-consuming, really.
What do you do at such times?
Just, it's not that you want to, but you just sort of wallow in it, really. Because that's all you can do. And it's like a downward spiral then. You may start feeling a bit dodgy, but you're okay, and then it'll just be something, and that's it. You go down the spiral. And it'll be those days that you see Claudia Schiffer, and that's it, you know, you may as well just get under the duvet and forget the rest of the day, really. It's almost like the kick you when you're down type idea, really. Obviously, the women that are up there are deliberately made to be as attractive as is humanly and physically possible. So with that, you know, you can't help but look at them and think...
Do you think of a particular one?
God. Well, I mean, I think the last one I went to see was Sliding Doors, and Gwyneth Paltrow. I mean, she really is naturally really attractive, isn't she? She seemed to lead this charmed life, basically, because she was so attractive, and that if you were that attractive, then, you know, that is a definite thing that I think that, you know, the more attractive a person is, the happier they are, which is probably a gross sort of, you know, inaccuracy on my part, really. But that is certainly a way I think.
Do you worry about how people will see you, or, you know, being seen? Is that more?
Yeah. I've experienced a thing where, you know, if I've been in town, I've literally felt like I want to walk along like that. Wanting to just not let yourself be vulnerable, just have something there. And that's maybe where the staying in thing comes from. If you're just in your own house, you can just sort of protect yourself. Just sort of sit in front of Jerry Springer instead. See people having emotional turmoil.
How does Helen strike you? She's very self-critical, and she sometimes experiences that criticism as coming from outside and other people criticising her own critical thoughts coming at her. She's, you know, I think what's happened is that she's internalised, you know, these media images and compares herself to them. So she's got this perfect person she's supposed to be physically, and is constantly finding that she's not like that. The good news about Helen is that she's decided to do something about that critical voice, and she's going to start 10 sessions of cognitive therapy to try and address the problem.
This thing about my appearance has been going on for longer than it should have done, longer than it needs to, really, and to be free of it in the future is a great thought. Not have it dragging along behind, you know, ball and chain. So I suppose that's what I'm hoping, that'll be the key. I'll get rid of it.
Helen.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. Have a seat.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So thanks for coming along today. Can you tell me a little bit about the problem that...
Cognitive therapy is all about
Just a
trying to use your thoughts to control your emotions. It's not always possible to get thoughts to control emotions, but by learning special techniques and by becoming much more alert to the patterns of thought, cognitive therapy can really help someone like Helen to stop these completely irrational negative emotions.
We'll explore with you the typical situations that trigger negative thoughts. Is that okay?
I think so.
Okay. Depression is a mood state that makes you very aware of where you stand in relationship to other people. It stops you from engaging the world in a very confident, challenging way. What you do is you start to behave as if you're very subordinate. Depression, therefore, serves the function of, as it were, keeping you in your place. The interesting thing is that the way we compete now is not through aggression, but through attractiveness. We want to be seen as talented. We want to be chosen for the cricket team, in my case. We want to be chosen...
You've just been dropped.
I've just been dropped, yes. I'm very depressed. We want to be chosen for university, and Helen wants to look beautiful.
Why do you think we do that? You know, that we feel like everyone's looking at us, and when really they're not. You know, like you say, they're just getting on with what they're doing.
Sure.
It is literally like a self-generated thing, isn't it? That's my question than that.
That's right, you did. You answered your own question.
So you think that cognitive therapy might actually stop her from saying, I'm too fat, I need to get my teeth fixed, I need to change my physical appearance?
Well, it's a very good question, that, Oliver. There's two ways in which cognitive therapy works. Firstly, people may look at the evidence and say, okay, no, I'm not too fat, I'm okay. Or they may say, well, I am too fat, but what the hell?
What's so extraordinary about the way Helen feels about herself is that it's absolutely typical of how the vast majority of women, young women particularly, feel about themselves. They really do believe that by changing the outside, they'll somehow change for the better the way they feel inside. And here you have an attractive young woman, you know, absolutely nothing wrong with her whatsoever, you know. And in whose interest is all this? And how on earth does it make sense that you have most of the female community, you know, having this nasty poison in their brains? It's horrible. People forget that it's not so very long ago, you know, before 1950, that television didn't exist. This medium is, I believe, you know, the main toxin that is causing so many women now to feel so bad about their bodies. It's common sense, but the studies are there which prove that if women are exposed to endless images of other beautiful women, they do feel bad about themselves. Surprise, surprise. But it's not just, you know, bodies. It's much broader than that, what television is doing to our minds. That's what worries me. You know, it's not just making us violent, it's making us, you know, obsessively concerned with consumption. When television was introduced in America, petty theft increased by 6% on average across the whole country. The way that television causes petty theft is by raising aspirations, by dangling all this stuff in front of your eyes, and you know, you don't just want to be more beautiful, you don't just want to have a more beautiful girlfriend if you're a man, you also want to have a fridge, a car, a this, a that, the other. That's what television is there for, to try and persuade us that if we haven't got this garbage, we'll be less happy, and that's what's poisoning our minds. All of us, I think, are obsessed with consumption, but at what point does obsession become addiction? On my way to meet a woman called Judy, who's suffered throughout most of her life from various addictions. She's currently receiving help at a remote treatment centre called Reserkin. Today she's going to be going through possibly the harshest part of the treatment, in which her fellow addicts challenge her about her addictions and the damage that it's done.
Judy, this is a peer evaluation, and in my opinion, the most important part of your recovery.
Dear Judy, thank you for reading your life story on shopping addiction to me. Throughout your life story, you were so self-centred, only thinking of yourself and not other people. Money and spending became more important to you.
I didn't for 1 minute think that I had a shopping addiction, because that was something people would laugh about. You know, you had this idea of bored housewives going out just to sort of, you know, fill the day, and everybody found it a bit twee. It's not. It's a very serious and debilitating illness. It's cost me homes, it's cost me marriages, and, I mean, could easily have cost me my freedom had it carried on much longer.
What shocked me most was all the bank accounts you opened up just to supply yourself with fancy labels, posh clothes and upmarket furniture. I was really angry when you said that.
I didn't feel good unless I was dressed really well. I mean, I just wanted to acquire beautiful things. I didn't even consider the price of anything. If I liked something and I wanted it, whether it was £30 or £200, I would buy it. I didn't think it was any good unless it cost a lot of money, really.
So you were buying an identity?
Yeah, and I was also... It was a form of escapism as well for me.
And this high you described, that's been there all the time?
Oh, it was incredible, yeah. It was a kind of like real hyper-tense sort of war, you know. I would go into shops that I'd been in the day before, or just looking to see if something new had come in, something that would catch my eye. Desperate to buy something. I'd be frightened as well because I knew that once I started, I wouldn't be able to stop. You know, I would say to myself, OK, Judy, you're just going to go and do the food shopping. You're not going to go anywhere else. But I knew that I would. I knew that I would.
With your age, the more money or things, and the more expensive, the better. Never mind who carried the cost, as long as it wasn't you. Everyone who came in contact with you, from mum to friend and lovers, were fair game, not to mention loan companies, catalogues, etc.
Any letters that came from the banks, I didn't open them, because if I didn't open them, I didn't have to deal with them.
You said your bank had gone.
I'd also had an access card by then, and the more I spent, the more they put the credit limit up.
And had nobody checked that you had a truly appalling history of creditworthiness?
I had a different name by then. I was married. So, you know, the person before I got married just disappeared.
You married Peter, and when he showed concern over your spending, you sulked and made him feel guilty so that he would buy you things. By the end of your marriage to Pete, you were in debt, yet still played Lady Bountiful, buying drinks for your friends.
I mean, the divide had begun. He started challenging my spending. He wanted to know what was going on with my finances, and I wasn't having any of that.
Your self-centredness around your spending is staggering.
Within 3 days of the cheque clearing on the sale of my flat in Twickenham, we'd separated. Well, I'd left him, and I went up to Scotland with £22,000 and spent it in 3.5 months.
How did you manage that?
No problem at all.
What did you buy?
I moved into a flat and gutted the flat totally, ripped everything out of the flat. So I was going out, and there was a massive haul, and I wanted a carpet, and the one I liked was $32.99 a square yard. Yeah, no problem, have that. You know, bales and bales of really expensive towels. Bedding, £90 for a duvet cover. I liked it so much I bought 3. My life in the end was so chaotic that I deluded myself that if I surrounded myself with beautiful things, that everything was okay.
Judy, your behaviour to all people was disgusting. You are a lying, cheating and devious woman. You thought you were above all.
What was the final straw that brought you here?
I had run up massive debts and still couldn't stop. I just knew that I'd hit my rock bottom. I've made a lot of people very unhappy because of my addiction to spending. I had to let my daughter go because I could no longer look after her. And I wanted to die, but I didn't know how to. I wasn't brave enough or stupid enough now, looking back, to be able to do it. I was spent up, used up, washed up.
The openness with which you voice your problems in our group is a great asset to have. You are never scared to voice your opinion or your pain. You have a courage which, together with your openness, will serve you well in your recovery.
It does make me feel very sad to see an intelligent person like that having really wasted their life.
Your addict friend Phil.
It makes me sad, but it also makes me very, very angry because, scientists have gone out there and studied precisely what these women's weaknesses are and then perverted art and used advertising perverted art to try and overstimulate what these women's aspirations are for themselves, and in particular to get them to confuse the fixing of the inner problem and the low self-esteem by fixing the outside, which of course doesn't work. In the 1950s, I doubt there were any shopping addicts at all. You might say that Judy's behaviour is very extreme, but I would say that nearly all of us are involved in a compulsive pattern of behaviour demanded by consumerism. It's just in Judy's case that it's flipped over from obsession into addiction. There, but for the grace of God, go all of it. The worry with Judy is obviously that she'll get back out into the outside world, and there's going to be a huge amount of pressure on her. The same pressure is going to be there to, get addicted again.
Can you think a little bit more about the kinds of thoughts, kinds of situations that bring out in you this feeling of being a failure and just can't cope with it?
Even just something simple like being in town, maybe clothes shopping, and seeing other women, and the continuous comparison thing, She's tall, I'm not. She's slim, I'm not. She's tanned, I'm not. Things like that.
Okay, so we'll call that your social comparison voice.
Okay.
What I'm going to ask you to do is to enact that voice. So what I'm going to do is get out of my chair. Whoa. Okay, and I'm going to ask you if you would come and sit into this chair.
Okay.
Sit. Now that chair is now Helen who becomes depressed. And this chair is you telling Helen those things you just told me. You're not as tall as her, you're not attractive as her. Okay, can you tell her?
Okay, that girl over there in the corner of the changing rooms trying on those slinky trousers is at least 3 or 4 inches taller than you and slimmer than you. So you are, kind of average in comparison.
The two-chair technique is a technique which allows you to kind of isolate the negative voice in your head. So you can actually put it in a chair and let it speak to you and see what it says and explore its emotions and so forth.
You know, she just looks so much better than you, and everyone will think that. If you were to stand side by side, everyone would think she would look better than you.
And then you can go back into the other chair and experience what it's like to be talked at in this very critical way.
When you say things like that, it totally crushes me and reduces my worth to nothing physically. And I just want to curl up and die. You've got this constant picture in your mind of how you really would like to look and how you would like to, the clothes you'd like to wear and everything, but you don't do it. Or you try, but you fail. I know! I know, I just can't do it. Or can't maintain it.
I'm going to come and sit in this chair. Now, what would you have gained from that?
Very little, I would imagine.
So what does that, well, I'm not sure. What does that tell you?
That I'm far better qualified to drag myself down than I am anything else.
Absolutely right.
Far more experienced in it.
Absolutely right.
Mm.
Absolutely right. That's exactly the point. That your critical skills are brilliant. They are faultless. Your helping skills, your compassionate side, is not very well developed, and therefore that is the part of you that we need to develop.
Like between the first and second sessions, he asked me to kind of take note of situations where, you know, and write down a situation.
Was it quite strange, though, going to therapy? I mean, most people think therapy is sort of for loonies.
No, it's very laid back. It's just kind of like sitting chatting in a way, although it's obviously chatting about really stuff that, you know, what you've had for your tea or whatever. Yeah, it's just been it's liberating actually in a way, because you get to kind of put things into the place and piece things together, which is great. And when pennies drop, it's just it's a great feeling.
So have you actually seen any beautiful women that you've compared yourself to, and then that you've applied what what Paul's helped you to learn?
Actually, on the way down here today, on the bus, I was sat on the bus, and there was a girl walking up the road, and just as the bus went past, I saw her. Now, she was probably about the same height as me, really slim, but she was really brown and had short blonde hair. So, before, I think I would have thought, oh, she looks really attractive. Maybe I should have short blonde hair, maybe I should be brown, and kind of almost tried to be that person or mirror them and just take it all on. But today I thought, well, yes, she's attractive, but she's different. She's different to me. And just the general concept that attractiveness can be lots of different things.
You've got 5 more sessions. How do you think it's going to pan out?
I think I'm expecting that even by the end one, it's obviously not going to be like a closed book. It's not like taking a course of antibiotics. It doesn't really work like that, I'm finding. So I am expecting it to kind of, for me anyway, be an ongoing process.
Helen was behaving in a way that many women behave. The issue really was that she didn't have a way of dealing with disappointments when she didn't meet her goals. Her goals was to be attractive and slimmer than she was, and so forth.
What's the rule? I mean, you talk about comparing, that Helen's making a lot of comparisons in the treatment.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
There are lots of different ways in which you can compare. You can compare yourself with worse off people. You can look down the rank and say, well, okay, I'm not like I want to be, but at least I'm better off than X, Y, and Z.
That's a healthy thing to do, is it?
Well, it's certainly a thing that protects you from being depressed. And counting your blessings tends to help you from, tends to be more protective. On the other hand, people who are vulnerable to depression, they tend to look upwards. They tend to see other people as better than them. They tend to select targets that are very high status targets to compare with. So the standards that they compare themselves with are very high ranking or high status targets. This is fueled. I mean, society, particularly capitalist society, wants you to do that. They don't want you to compare yourself with average Joe. They want you to be, striving to do your very best.
How do you feel you are along that road? How do you feel you come along that road?
Well, the point about having a friend and not an enemy is a big one, obviously.
That's right.
And I feel that is kind of really going along well. The fact that
you're developing that.
Yeah, the fact that I've realised that the voice has been someone who really hates me,
All the indications are that the level of discontent, whether you want to call it depression or whatever it is, the level of unhappiness and discontent and basic misery is increasing. The sense of community, the sense of belonging, that's going. The sense of family structure is going. And what we're left with is these individuals operating on this theatre where they just simply have to present themselves. And if they can't present themselves in certain kinds of ways, then they're on the scrap heap. And we see this in work, we see this in all kinds of arenas, where if you can't make the grade, you're out.
This is the challenge of this year of challenge. Finding security and stability in a world pushed ever faster by the irresistible forces of history and human invention. A world so fast, so competitive, that today 90% of new products are off the market within 2 years of being launched. So I challenge business. You are the wealth creators, vital to the success of everything we do, and we will work in partnership with you as a pro-business, pro-enterprise government pursuing policies for the long term.
just today, you know, New Labour have introduced this new index of quality of life with chosen indicators. And I noticed that the first indicator of all is indeed economic growth, which doesn't surprise me because that's where we're all starting from. But I wonder why they don't also include an index of the most fundamental thing of all, emotional well-being. Well, I've been writing this article and I found a very amusing quote. In 1970, a prominent American politician said, "In the next 10 years, we'll increase our wealth by 50%. The profound question is, does that mean we'll be 50% richer in any real sense, 50% better off, 50% happier?" And the man who said that was none other than Richard Milhous Nixon. But the fact that it was said by him, a paranoid and foolish man by and large, shouldn't distract us from the great wisdom in there. Which is that it's undeniable that we've become richer, both individually and collectively, but the process by which individuals may have become richer has actually made them unhappier.
Actually understand and experience anything. Just been a total letdown to myself and to company. I'm Harry, I'm 44. I work at Joshua Tetler's and this is my wife Tina. I'm a packaging operative, well a packaging technician we call now. That's basically putting beer into barrels. From when I first started work, from leaving school, I've always looked for jobs that I've enjoyed doing, had an interest in doing. Never gone chasing great wages. I loved it so much, didn't I? I really did. I loved my job. We worked Monday to Friday then. And we've always, you know, worked towards us weekends together, haven't we?
That's right, yeah.
Whether it be to be together at weekend or to do his own separate things at weekend, it were all geared up, wasn't it?
Yeah,
you got up
we
Monday,
knew what we were doing.
We aimed for Friday. We've both always worked, haven't we?
So what happened when you did become depressed, and when was it?
Was that 1996 now, wasn't it? End of 95, beginning of 96,
yeah,
wasn't it?
February, wasn't it?
We went through a series of changes at work. It was a process where they were streamlining their workforce and things like that, and it was called Vision 96.
Did they make people redundant?
Yeah, there's a lot. Good friends gone. Good friends still going, you know what I mean? People that have been there a long time. I think, we're paying too much money out in overtime. And we still want meeting demands, if you want. We still want getting all the beer out that we should. So they decided they wanted 7-day, 24-hour cover. The next week, suddenly, we were on these 12-hour shifts and doing all this training and other jobs, and it was just like whack, running into a brick wall for me. It turned our world upside down, didn't it? It really did. I've never had it, but I said, imagine it was like having jet lag, if you know what I mean. I was having time off when at times that usually I were at work, and everything was just all over the place, wasn't it? You know what I mean? I'd be in the bathroom, getting ready to go to work, and I'd be looking at the clock and thinking, it's going to be 10 to 8 tonight before these two see me again.
Shift system. You were working very long hours. How did they compensate you for that?
With the package that we're given financially, it was great, you know. But at the time, I were happy getting, 6-7 grand a year less. At the time, I had more peace of mind. this sort of like multi-skilling things. You were learning jobs that you'd never really touched upon before. It's got a lot more technical, there's more computer work. When you're in locker room and everybody else seems to be getting on with it, and it don't seem to bother them, they just take it with a pinch of salt. So I felt isolated in my own way that way. It was me that was the freak. And that's when I started going to work on bus. I was crying. I was sitting on the toilet, I was crying. I just wasn't coping with anything. I just said to Tina, I can't go to work.
What did you do all day?
What did I do?
Stare at telly.
I'd stared at telly or went to bed. That's all I did. And my friends used to try and drag me out, didn't they? Say, you're not sitting in, you know, like that'll do you good. As soon as I got into that environment, I want it to be away. Some of them, they'll never realise how I cringed and tightened up inside if one or two of my friends talked about what they were doing at work. I didn't think I deserved to be among them, spending money when I were on sick, not earning money. The way I was, what was the point in me being around? I used to say, I mean, have you said to Tina, talked openly about it, saying, listen, if I did do something to myself, you'd be upset for a while, but you'd get over it, and it would be better than it is now. That's how I had it in my mind, wasn't it? And you caught me in the kitchen with some pills in my mouth, didn't you?
Yeah.
And I stood in there. It were on at length of time that I were in there. Tina knew there was something up. There was something wasn't quite right, and you came in.
Came in, didn't I?
But I had the pills in my mouth. And it were only the thought of Keegan that stopped me from swallowing.
Yeah, well, that's what I said, didn't I?
Yeah. Just think what I'd do to him.
How did you cope with that?
It just had to be really strong.
There weren't many nights went by where at least one of us didn't cry, is there?
Well, yeah, that were a lot. Yeah, we did a lot of crying.
It slightly pisses me off, actually, that Harry ends up, at the end of all this, that Harry ends up basically blaming himself and saying locating the problem inside himself, rather than, which is, I totally understand why he does that, but rather than being allowed to realise that his problem is actually part of social processes. Compare with 1950, businesses are much more competitive, and individuals therefore have to be much more flexible. I mean, there's no jobs for life anymore, obviously. As everybody knows, there's a contract culture. People work on Sundays, people work very unsocial hours, this is common practice. The threat of failure hangs over us all, and not surprisingly, more of us are feeling depressed. Something like 80 million hours a year are lost to depression at a cost of around £3 to £5 billion every year. So that's, you know, a substantial amount of economic waste, if you like, as well as, you know, obviously the psychological damage that people like Harry have to endure.
I mean, I've had about 5 or 6 different antidepressants, haven't I? Some of them I can't remember. Dithiapine, Prathiapine and Prozac. There were another couple in between. I can't remember them. Like I say, towards back end, things had got pretty desperate, hadn't they?
Yeah.
they'd looked at this new drug, this one I'm on now, Effexor XL, and from that day on, it's been a revelation. I saw a change within 48 hours, didn't I?
Yep.
It was just unbelievable.
You know, I could see the difference day by day. I used to think, thank God he's come out of it.
Looking back now, obviously, I had a problem and I needed a bit longer time than maybe some other people. And I just thank God now that Tetler's given me that time. It was running shortly after Christmas when I saw a company doctor, wasn't I?
Mm.
And they gave me a starting date back at work and everything like that. And touch wood, we're all right.
Yeah, we have been since January.
Yeah, and we will be.
Definitely.
It strikes me as being a pretty serious condemnation of our society that someone like Harry, and indeed millions of others like him, have to take pills in order to be able to go into work and function properly. The crazy thing is that Harry actually is the sane one. He's the one who actually realises that, you know, being paid more, being able to buy more consumer goods is not the way to raise his feeling of self-worth. It's a much deeper thing than that. And what scares me is to think that he's actually very unusual. The vast majority of us, including me to some extent, actually believe this ideology. And I worry about those people, the people who've really bought into this idea that consumerism is a way of raising your self-esteem. I'm going to visit Judy. She's been back from Rezerkin for 5 weeks. It's been quite difficult to stay in touch with her. I'm just hoping she's managed to cope all right. Signs are right. Hi, Judy. Hiya. Whoop.
Come in. Come into my hovel.
Hiya.
Hiya.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm here.
Yeah.
That's about it at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, look, oh, how the mighty have fallen, eh?
Well, looks all right to me.
Well, you're going to say that, aren't you?
Yeah, it does. Looks all right to me.
No.
Yeah.
I obsess about the fact that I'm living in a shit tip. I mean, that's how I feel about it. I'm not saying it is, but that's how I feel about it. The decor is horrible. There's no curtains on the windows. The garden is horrible, you know, but I haven't got the money to do it. I haven't got the resources to get the money to do it, you know, so I'm just going to have to be patient and stop obsessing about it and accept that it will come. And it's not the most important thing in my life at the moment, which it was before.
If you think you had money, though, do you think you'd go shopping?
Oh, yeah. But I can't now. I can't do it. And so I think at the moment, to protect myself, I'm not going into situations where I'm going to have the temptation. I mean, if I walk down the town, I'm on edge all the time. I'm walking past clothes shops with my head up like this rather than looking in the window, because I know that if I see something I like, I would become obsessed with having to be able to get it. So, you know, I'm kind of staying away from all that at the moment.
What do you actually do all day?
I spend a lot of time talking to other people on the phone. I've got a whole circle of amazing friends that I've made all through the fellowship. People that phone up to see how I am, not because they want anything or just because they care.
Have you been watching much telly?
No. Don't particularly want to sit and watch somebody trying to sell me this and sell me that, and, you know, I think, oh yeah, I've got to have this, I've got to have that, and I want to go on holiday there, and, you know, I'm not a decent human being unless I'm walking about with this car or that wallpaper or that furniture or, you know, and it just all seems false to me. It's all part of the false life that I was living, and I'm not interested in that really, not anymore.
It's wonderful that therapies, pills are becoming more efficient and that the Harrys and Judys at an individual level are getting better help. But the problem is a much wider one. You know, New Labour say they want to improve the quality of our life, and I'm sure they're quite sincere, but unfortunately what they're actually doing is, you know, adding to the problem of all of us wanting to be something that we're not, of trying to increase competitiveness, of creating a yet more competitive society across the board. In that respect, I think, you know, New Labour's not going to do anything to make us less depressed. Unfortunately, it's going to add to the problem.
So what's the solution all of that?
I think the solution is to really change the values of our society so that we cease to place such a high emphasis on the achievement of power, status and wealth. I'm sure it's true that there is something psychologically unsustainable about the present setup, that people do feel very discontented, and I think that increasingly people are just going to say, I can't be having with this, I can't stand this any longer, and instead of blaming their marriage and getting the divorce rate mushrooming, or you know, rushing off and trying to get a different job, or retraining, or imagining that there's some magic cure within the system that's going to help them, I think people increasingly come to question, and perhaps it'll, you know, perhaps politicians will be elected who will actually, you know, be standing for an alternative to the form of advanced capitalism that we've got, that this free market rat race, which nobody seems to be able to get off.